few of these headlines we've already gone over. NBA is scrambling after China is angered by a pro-democracy tweet from the manager of the Houston Rockets. That's The Guardian, Breitbart.com. China suspends relationship with Rockets over GM tweet. The Daily Caller, they cite multiple U.S. industries. Elite American institutions keep bowing to communist China over and over again. It talks about the NBA. It also talks about Hollywood. Also talks about the hypocrisy of the Walt Disney Company, Nike. Also the NFL is looking to emulate the NBA and accessing the Chinese revenue. Is this really these American companies choosing potential revenue over the benefit of the country and the ideals of freedom that America represents? Here to talk more about this, once again, we have a U.S.-China relations expert, Brigadier General Robert S. Spalding. He's a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute and author of the new book, Stealth War, How China Took Over While America's Elite Slept. General Spalding, it's good to have you back on again.
Thanks. Great to be here.
What's your reaction to this? I mean, this is huge news. As soon as I saw it, I was so thrilled that we, had you scheduled to come back on, because I know you certainly know what you're talking about here. So, I mean, what do we do about these American companies bowing down to the communist Chinese?
It's terrible. I mean, it's horrible. But you know what? When I saw that, I was actually giving a talk yesterday in Palm Beach about the book, and I said I can think of no better advertisement for exactly what the book is trying to explain, which is, you don't need tanks and ships and planes to take over a country anymore. You have essentially globalization in the internet. And so, where, during Hitler's time, you would have needed a Nazi panzer division to come in and take control of the NBA. Now all you need is the profits from China, and they'll essentially bow to your to the Communist Party's wishes. So this is exactly what's going on. It's exactly what I experienced in the White House when I would try to get law firms or think tanks to help me expose what China was doing and help me come up with policy options to counter it. They would tell me, sorry, but we can't anger our Chinese patrons. And so this is going on across the country. It's not just the NBA. It's not just Hollywood. It's the tech companies. It's Apple and Google. It's Facebook. They all want to be there. And in order to be there, the Chinese Communist Party requires American corporations to abandon the values of our nation. And that's exactly what's happening in this country. We're abandoning our values, and really not for better for the American people, because we lost 13 million jobs and 70,000 factories to the point where, they're manufacturing our military equipment now. So it's a tragedy and something that we need to fix.
Yeah, and so, this word globalism gets thrown around, and then this other word, nationalism, gets thrown around. And sometimes, people try to, I think, mischaracterize what people mean in America when they say nationalism. But I really think it's like you said. I mean, our nation has not benefited from this, mass exodus of manufacturing to China and everything else. American corporations may have. But I mean, here's an example where you would think that they would understand that those pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong are waving the American flag because they think what we stand for is for freedom, and it's good and better than what they're facing, and yet they turn their back on them. They apologize, all for $1.
Yeah, and Americans are getting fired today for things that may anger the Chinese Communist Party, and the Communist Party turns around, calls the corporation, says, hey, just let go of that person and apologize, and they're doing it. And, the manager of the Houston Rockets almost got fired because he stood up for what he believes as an American and supporting the people of Hong Kong. So, it is a tragedy. It is, you would expect more from this country, that we would stand up for our freedoms. And I think that's why, in 2014 at the Pentagon, when I started finally looking into this competition, working for the chairman, I realized this is the most dangerous existential threat to American freedom since, in our history, because, quite frankly, they don't come at us in a way that really demonstrates danger in the way that we would expect it to come. It's not Pearl Harbor or 9/11. It is a slow erosion of our freedoms for profit that, quite frankly, the elite benefit from, and the blue-collar class of America loses.
Last week, in one of I think it was episode 2 of the season, South Park, the adult cartoon show, and I've watched it on and off since I was in the 7th grade. But the creators there are kind of libertarian-minded. They did an episode where they were lamenting that, kids today can't watch any movie that's not approved. The writing isn't approved by the Communist Chinese. Do you talk about that in your book, about how they've infiltrated Hollywood?
I didn't do the media in the book because that's been done before, but clearly that's well documented that Hollywood is basically, with Red Dawn, the new version of Red Dawn, it was Chinese and then they made it North Korean in order to sell it. Of course, they never even sold it when they changed it to North Korea in China. So, this has been going on for a long time. Actors over there are essentially bowing to them, the movie industry, and so Secretary Pompeo, earlier this year, went to the Motion Picture Association of America and basically told them they needed to stop selling out American values for profit for selling movies in China. If you think about America's soft power, and that is the what is the allure of America, it's about our Constitution, it's about our freedom. And one of the representation of that has been our movie industry traditionally, and it's been quite popular. But we're walking away from what has been the mainstay of American power, which is our ability to stand up for our own principles.
And this is so disturbing to me. We're talking with Brigadier General Robert S. Spalding, again, senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. His book, Stealth War: How China Took Over While America's Elite Slept. I love the sub-headline of that book, the subtitle there, because, I would consider the heads of the NBA, the heads of, Nike and others, elite. They are America's elite. And, in this case, maybe they're not asleep, maybe they are, but, they're just chasing this dollar. It's more profitable for them to go after this Chinese market. And I also want to reiterate that, the Houston Rockets general manager tweeting this, it was probably a huge red flag to the NBA because of Yao Ming, who played for the Houston Rockets, who was, Chinese and I think still lives in China now. He came over here and then went back. And so there's probably a lot of Chinese fans that are fans of Houston Rockets because Yao Ming was a successful, Chinese NBA star. But that's still no excuse, here we are, we're trying to bring back jobs to this country. We're in the middle, by the way, of a trade war with China that's incredibly justified, I think, because America's gotten the raw end of the deal for so long. Our foreign policy is shifting, and yet American companies, again, are bowing down to China. General Spalding, and I just don't know what to do about it. Is there a solution out there, do you think?
Yeah, there is, and quite frankly, it's any problem, requires a problem definition before you have a solution. And so my job at the White House, when I got there in 2017, right after the president was elected, was essentially to educate the staff there on what was going on. Because I really had a unique opportunity, having been at the Council on Foreign Relations and met a lot of the industry elite while there. And I took that network and experience to the Pentagon, where I was working on this from 2014 to 2016. So by the time I got to the White House, I had a good idea what was going on. And so it just was a matter of educating and advocating within the bureaucracy of the federal government what was going on. So the bureaucracy is beginning to adjust. What I recognized while there was that the American people needed to be made aware. There was no way I could do that and continue to move up the ranks in the Air Force. And so I voluntarily decided to retire from the Air Force in order to write this book and come out and educate. So we have to get aware. And after we're aware, we need to realize that we need to invest in our own country, in our own people, not in China. We're sending our retirement funds over there. This trade war, the tariffs have to be made permanent because they're never going to be an open economy. we're just going to have to go back to what we were doing during the Eisenhower years, which is really, being really responsible and efficient on how we spend defense dollars and pouring the majority of our money into our own country, infrastructure, industrial base, STEM education, and research and development.
Oh man, and then the problem will kind of fix itself at that point, by doing that. And there's a lot of people with the trade situation. A lot of people thinking, what we're going to have to also go back and do is just do different trade deals with countries around that area.
Right, with democracies. That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that'll be a good thing. Brigadier General Robert S. Spalding, I appreciate your comments on this issue, this developing story. We really appreciate it, and congratulations on your book and the success that you're having with it. And we will talk to you again soon. China seems to be in the news every week now.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
All righty, thank you. Folks, the book is Stealth War, How China Took Over While America's Elite Slept. Check it out. You can get it at Amazon.